Everybody, and welcome to the Buffalo Pregame Podcast. Special guest today, outside of all you Bills Mafia members. Let's give it up for yourselves. Come on, let's go. Hey. Jim Lulo bringing the energy as always. Love it. All right, Alex Brasky, Zach Jones, Derek Kramer here with all you lovely Bills Mafia members, and what a day it is today. Beautiful day outside, boys, and what a day inside for Mafia Con 2025. First of all, got to give a shout out. Bruckman Media, Pat Moran, Del Reed, Zach Sheldon, everybody involved with setting this up for us. It's a very, very easy day for us, and especially when you look back to last year, the hot temperatures, it's much improved, and this is a beautiful set.
Yeah, we were getting the stories before we came up here of what last year was now compared to this, and even coming in today, not knowing what to expect, walking in going, oh, wow, this is all right, cool, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, also special shout out, though, as well, the guys preceding us there, Step Brothers Podcast, Mookie Hawkins, Chris, Sean with the Step Brothers Podcast. Good job, you guys, preceding us there. But no, it's awesome. It's a great day. And thank goodness for air conditioning. It's also a big deal here. Very underrated aspect to everything, but appreciate everyone being out there. And nice little who's who, though, as well. Like we got Tim Graham sitting over here next to Pat. Bank on Buffalo over here showing up. But again, everyone out here, appreciate everyone. And let's have some fun.
Yeah, let's have a good time on the show today. And a little bit different flavor to the show, but sometimes that is very much welcomed, and I welcome Zach and Derek in, and I want to start you guys with this. Last year at the stadium, and I know for myself, dating back to when I was like 6, 7 years old, I've been going to that stadium. So many great memories mixed with a couple of bad memories as well. The game where they lost to the Steelers backups, I think that's probably my worst memory at the stadium, but plenty of good memories the past several years, advancing in the playoffs, winning the division, home playoff games. So I want to ask you this, Derek. I want to kick the people off with this, maybe get the thoughts brewing. What are your memories of the stadium? When you leave this stadium, will it be more positive or will it be more negative dating back to the drought years? How will you remember the Ralph, as they call it?
The thing is that, oddly enough, I don't have a lot of in-stadium experiences. The beauty of working with the Buffalo Bills Radio Network is you're working. And typically, not everybody gets to go down there. So guys like Zach and myself, over the last 9 years, I've been in Amherst, New York for every Bills game. So I don't get to go to the stadium. There's been 2 times since I've been working at GR that I've been able to go to a Bills game.
Wow.
The first game when the Bills were purchased by Terry Pegula. So that's really fun in that sense.
Right, that was a celebration.
That's a good celebration. It was a good day. The second one was that Vikings home game from a couple years ago that was certifiably on drugs. The minute that they make that goal line stop and everyone's hooting and hollering in the section, and I turn to my friends and I go, we're not done yet.
Right.
Of all the times to be right about something, that was not one that I wanted.
No.
Because they weren't done. There was a touchdown because of a fumble recovery from the snap, and we're off and running, overtime loss. Lucky me, the last time that I've been able to go to a Bills game.
And that's similar to how it's been for everybody, kind of positives and negatives. Zach, how about yourself? I know that you go back a long way as a Bills fan,
Yep.
So like Derek, you haven't been able to go in recent years, leading the charge on the Bills coverage, pregame and stuff like that, but when you look back at this stadium, the old Highmark Stadium, as they call it, will you have more positive memories or more negative memories?
I'm going to have more positive memories because of the last few years. Like up to that point, it was a party, but it was a party that we were all trying to get through a bad football team for a long time. And now the last, 7, 8 years it's been a party because of how good they are. And I love going to games. One of my fondest memories as a Bills fan is in that 2011 season. It's not the New England game. I went to the Philadelphia Eagles game, but it was the first regular season game I'd been to, and it was a party from then on. I think it's really poetic that they'll be able to close out the stadium on such a high, on such a run, whether it be a Super Bowl or not. We all hope that it's storybook and that they close out stadium with an AFC Championship win, going to the Super Bowl. Of course, we want that. But I think regardless, we'll all be going into next year with really good feelings about where they're at. Where from a few years ago, yeah, I mean, you get the Terry Pegula, buying the Bills, and they're going to stay the whole thing. But during the drought, it was like, we're all just trying to get through this together. Bills Mafia comes from that.
Yeah.
But now the vibes are awesome.
Yeah, I think when it comes to this conversation, it's more so recency bias than anything. If they're able to send this place off, like you said, with the phenomenal playoff run, AFC Championship game appearance at home, I think that will really catapult them into this new stadium. Now, if they bow out in the first round or, God forbid, not even make the playoffs, I think things could be looked at a little bit differently.
A little different.
So I think recency bias certainly plays a role into this conversation when you're talking about the stadium and the excitement surrounding it. But how about positional battles for this year's Bills team? Training camp coming up just a week away. Really, this is the prelude to training camp every year, and that's really what makes me so excited about coming here every year, is knowing that Bills football is right around the corner. So when it comes to positional battles, there's a few key ones that you look at. You look at the cornerback position, you look at the defensive line, you look at wide receiver, but I want to start with the cornerback position. And why don't we go to Derek here? We're sharing 2 mics here, 3 guys, 2 mics.
It's a fun process.
Right. But listen, that's not a complaint at all. It's just
it's fun.
Makes it a little interesting. But when it comes to those positional battles, let's look at the cornerback position, Derek. And when you enter training camp, you have Maxwell Hairston, you have Tre'Davious White really competing at the top of the chain for that starting position. But at the same time, you can't count out names like a Dorian Strong, who I heard you talk about on the radio earlier today. You can't count out a Dane Jackson. You can't count out a Jamarcus Ingram. So there's a lot of intrigue entering training camp surrounding the cornerback position, specifically who's going to start opposite Christian Benford. And let me just break it down to those 2 at the top of the food chain right now. When it comes to Tre'Davious White, Maxwell Hairston, in your opinion, how would you like to see things play out? And maybe couple that with how you think things are going to play out from the Bills' perspective.
All right.
And then we'll follow with Zach.
I'm going to say something possibly bold and stupid at the same time here. If Tre'Davious, looking for bold, not stupid, I don't know if I could do one without the other. But Tre'Davious White and Maxwell Hairston fighting for that cornerback 2 spot, I see an ending where it hits Bills fans in the feels, which is, if Trey White doesn't beat out Hairston, do the Bills grant him his release to try to get a starting spot elsewhere? And I just saw your face, and I know that it's uncomfortable, hence bold and stupid. But I would imagine the Bills might. It's probably more of both. But it is something that it's uncomfortable to think about. But the Bills probably would grant Trey White a release if he doesn't win cornerback 2, because of the fact of what he has held to a standard with the Bills organization, to a point where, yeah, if there's another spot that you can try to win, we'll help you do that.
Now that would be the question for me. If he feels that there's a spot that he can earn on another team. Now, I'd have to disagree with the fact that I don't think Tre'Davious White would ask for his release at this point. I think you come back to this team, the team that drafted you, with the coach that you have such a great relationship with. I think he's embraced that veteran role that he's taken on this team, and he's also embraced the fact that there's a lot of unknown entering this season. So I'm not so sure he's going to be quick to pull the trigger. Now, if he is to ask, I think the Bills would grant him. I don't think they want any lingering resentment there after a parting of the ways, but I think Trey White is in it, and in it for the long haul, whether it come as a starter or a veteran leading Max Hairston.
Yeah, I'm more on the line on lines that I think Hairston's going to win it out of camp. I do. He had one of the physically eye-popping traits that you want in a first-round draft pick, and they got him late with his speed. And when you have someone like Christian Benford as CB1, you have Taron Johnson as your nickel corner, you can kind of allow Hairston to make some mistakes early in the season. They do, outside of Baltimore, have a pretty soft start to the schedule that will allow them to bring him in. I love Trey. he played much better with Baltimore than the Rams, but I am also somebody that's always going to be pushing for go towards the future, go towards the young guys rather than keep him around. Now, I will say, though, if he doesn't win it out of camp, I want to see Trey starting somewhere else. I really do. I don't want a situation where we had with Micah Hyde last year where we are sitting there going, man, he is there, though. Do we go to that well? I don't want to have that conversation if we don't have to.
And that is the other side to consider, kind of that waiting in the wings, that backup quarterback situation. The one faction of the fan base will always be calling for old trusty Tre'Davious White to come on and replace the rookie at the soonest sign of trouble. So I think that's spot on. And I think, Derek, I did take the mic away from you. We only have the two mics here, but I think your opinion was straying toward Max Hairston winning it out of camp.
Yes, I do think that's what that is I do expect Hairston to win that out of camp. I do love all three of the corners that they took, though Hancock could play safety as well. They got a lot of physical talent, a lot of measurables from players that the Bills have throughout the entirety of this coaching tenure with Sean McDermott. They can fix up secondary players, late round picks. When the Bills take a late round secondary player, you listen. You put your ear to the ground and go, okay, I know you can cook. Let's see what original recipe we can come up with here. Hence why.
Let Derek cook.
Yes, or James cook.
Okay.
But
got a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
A lot of cooks in the kitchen. But this also leads me. To my draft class crush, Dorian Strong.
Yep.
6th rounder, sticky man coverage type player.
You're looking for those Christian Benford vibes in Dorian Strong.
I think Brandon Beane, that son of a gun, did it again. You draft a corner in the 1st round, and then you draft a corner in the 6th round, and they're both gonna stick on the roster. Elam didn't necessarily stick on the roster longer, but he was on the roster.
I think if you're the Bills, you'd like that to be flipped this year. I'm with you.
Yes.
I've said in previous podcasts that Dorian Strong's mechanics as a cornerback, I think at this point, is ahead of that of Maxwell Hairston. But when it comes to physical talent, Max Hairston just has that athletic ability that jumps off the page. And that's what Dorian Strong is missing in his quest to compete, I think.
Yep.
Christian Benford, a little bit more physically gifted than a Dorian Strong. He's going to have to, I think, prove that he can come up and tackle, something that has become a strength of Christian Benford's and something that we know that the Bills look for out of their defensive backs and really require if you're going to really maintain a steady level of play throughout their system. So beyond the cornerback position, there's a lot of other questions on the defensive side of the ball, and I don't think there's as many at linebacker. There is with Matt Milano. Can he stay healthy? Is he going to stand the test of time throughout a 17-game regular season? And one of my bold predictions, I've said it time and again, he's going to start 15, 16 games this season. I truly do believe that. I think this is his year, maybe his last year as a productive player for the Buffalo Bills. But if you look in front of the linebackers at the defensive line, that's going to tell the story for Brandon Beane whether or not he had a successful draft. If TJ Sanders, if Deion Walker can come in here and filter in immediately, now that Larry Ogunjobi is going to miss the first 6 games of the season, along with Michael Hoyt on the outside, maybe he was going to spend some time on the inside as well. Who knows with his versatility? But I think it's going to tell the story pretty much cut and dry whether or not Brandon Beane had a successful draft, if this defensive line is improved or not. And if it's not, there's going to be a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have about how they've not done great at adding to the defensive line at times. I will tell you, though, and even throwing in Landon Jackson there.
And they've tried to throw so much at the wall, it just hasn't stuck.
No, and it's where, like, stuff like Von Miller, he worked and then got hurt. And they've had a tough time coming back from that.
Right.
I love TJ Sanders. That entire South Carolina defensive line, if you watched any of South Carolina football this year, you probably came away going, give me any of them. Give me any of them and we're happy. I like Landon Jackson. I like the value they got with him. Deion Walker, it seems like they got a value pick with him with the back injury. But you're right. Like, if this doesn't hit, it's another glaring issue for Beane in his drafting. Now, if it does hit, I mean, I guess we're going to do maybe bold predictions before training camp. If it does hit, they're going to the Super Bowl. All they have to do is get Patrick Mahomes on the ground twice in a game, 3 times in a game. They probably win some of these matchups. If you have a good defensive line that can get home, you already have a guy like Greg Rousseau, who's at least top 25 in most pass rushing statistics. You get a little bit of help in the interior. Ed Oliver probably isn't as inconsistent. You get maybe closer to what you had 2 years ago. You got something cooking there. It's just you have to have guys, maybe not on the level the Rams had last year with Fisk and Verse, but if you can get just good quality contributions across the defensive line and then add in Hoyt and Ogunjobi, you got something. But the last few years kind of leads you to be a little bit maybe more pessimistic of, yeah, are we sure about that?
And in addition, though, it's also, what is the last memory that everyone has about the Bills defense? That defensive line let them down. If you can get any sort of market improvement from the newcomers in this one, and not just the draft class, you're talking about Michael Hoyt, you're talking about Larry Ogunjobi, you're talking about Joey Bosa. If you can get any sort of impact from these new additions, like Zach said, this is probably a Super Bowl team. And that is probably where it is. Zach and I took too much time this offseason studying up the defensive lines throughout the draft class. And
because you knew it was coming.
Deion Walker and TJ Sanders, like the fact that you double dipped in such a talented draft class at the position at D tackle, nothing bad can happen from that.
Yeah.
I do think that this is a very good pair of additions that they have there. Good for Sanders to get signed and be on camp on time, because Walker would have had an opportunity to take snaps away if that was the case.
At the same time, you have to show some maintenance to that back issue that Walker came into the draft with. So if Sanders didn't sign come training camp, I think you'd be looking at it like we need some bodies out here. I mean, you do have Hoyt and Ogunjobi for training camp until their suspensions kick in during the regular season. But if you ask me who I'm most excited about on this defensive line, it really flipped 180 from the draft to after the offseason program. After the draft, just due to the circumstances surrounding TJ Sanders' selection, the trade, and giving up some capital to do that, I wasn't totally high on it. I didn't think that a redundant player somewhat within the system was the right way to go in that respect. But after watching him out there without pads on, so you can't take a lot from it, and that's where I'm really interested to see these guys during training camp and the reports coming out, how they match up against this talented Bills offensive line that has led this offense to great things and really paved the way for James Cook's progression, kept Josh Allen clean. If TJ Sanders can produce against this Bills offensive line over the next few weeks at training camp, that's when I'm going to really start to get excited about the prospects. Right now, I'm still in wait and see mode, but it's not going to take much for me to get really excited about this group. And I bring up the Bills offensive line, and you look at Brandon Thorne's rankings, one of the top offensive line evaluators. He's got Spencer Brown in there. He's got Deion Dawkins in there. And then if you look on the inside, you might have two of the most underrated guards in football, Osiris Torrance and David Edwards. And then Connor McGovern came in for Mitch Morse last year. Did you even notice that Mitch Morse was gone?
Yeah, one of the bigger worries was you're moving out your center. Or how is this going to look? Morse has been there for all of Josh's career. Are we sure it's going to work? It was fine. I've loved Osiris Torrance since he was a guard at Florida. I would have loved it. The Bills took him in the first round. They get him in round 2. And you're right. He is absolutely one of the more underappreciated offensive linemen. Yeah. I specifically at the guard position. I think he's going to start getting his flowers soon.
Now I think year 2 may not have been as spotless as year 1 for Osiris Torrance, but I don't think you came out of that year disappointed with what you saw. I just think his year 1 was so good, anything was going to look like a step back. But I don't think there's much to discuss when it comes to the offensive line. We'll move it to Derek here and talk running back and James Cook. He needs to be there, and he needs to be there in body and mind fully for this team to succeed. I listed him as my most important player for the Bills, not named Josh Allen, entering training camp, not only just based on his presence at training camp, but as somebody brought up in my comments when I posted about this the other day, if he hasn't been spending all of his time in the offseason working out and kind of biding his time in that respect because he wasn't there for the voluntary stuff, he's one big burst away from a hammy pull. So is he there? Is he well-conditioned? Body, mind, soul. They need James Cook to have another huge year if they're going to make that Super Bowl run like Zach mentioned.
Yes. I think that James Cook will be that player that he's promised he would be all season, which is, I don't want to be the distraction. I don't want to cause any problems. And I think James Cook and the Bills both know this is probably the last year of James Cook, the Buffalo Bill. And Cook will be playing for a different motivation in addition to a ring. It will be, I want to make sure that I am clear, mind, body, soul, so that I can get that contract that I'm asking for, that the Bills just, quite frankly, the salary cap's just not going to allow them to retain him. Enjoy James Cook.
And I'll let you continue. That's what's going to play in the Bills' favor. If he's not there fully, it's going to hurt him as well.
And that's the thing. Like, that's why I don't expect any problems from Cook. I think they all realize the situation. Enjoy James Cook while he is still a Buffalo Bill is probably the best way to say it.
Yeah.
I will continue to enjoy James Cook. Hopefully, they can come to some sort of like agreement with each other, but I will miss him when he's no longer a Bill.
Yeah, and I think the Bills will miss the status quo that they've had at running back these past couple of years, with a Ray Davis coming in last year and proving that he's capable. Ty Johnson, what he's done. Ty, I saw, was at Mafia Con earlier today, made a surprise appearance. So what he's brought to the table, and if they're to lose one of those pieces, it severely diminishes what you have at that position. But I think you're proven at running back. You know what you have, one of the best units in the league. You look at wide receiver, though, that should be an improved position on paper. You look at Joshua Palmer, the contract they gave him. Everyone's excited about Elijah Moore. And then what you have coming back in Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel. So there's a lot of hope surrounding that position group, but that's what it is. It's hope. And I analogize it to the Buffalo Sabres, whereas the Sabres have it really up and down the roster at every position.
Yeah.
The Bills have a really significant unknown at wide receiver and defensive line, which we already talked about. And like I mentioned with the running back, a lot of these pieces do need to come together for this team to put their best foot forward.
Oh, 100%. Wide receiver is such it's a lightning rod topic for a lot of Bills fans. I know our station has had
what
fun
happened
with it as well. Look, I'm an Elijah Moore junkie. I have a problem. It's okay. I'll admit it here. I think when you look now at the wide receiver room and how they've built it, it's a lot of separation. It's a lot of twitchy, fast guys that are going to be there to get yak, which has always been a conversation about the Bills' offense and especially their passing game. And, I look at a guy like Keon Coleman, too. Before he got hurt, Alex, it felt like he's coming on. That Seattle game alone made you really think, okay, the jump ball thing maybe isn't like what I love the most, but if it's working and he's doing everything else and he's making these big plays, great. He gets the wrist injury, which is a huge thing for the Bills as a whole last year, not just at the wide receiver position. Then they got something. Palmer, 2 years ago, really was an ascending receiver. His separation analytics are awesome. Curtis Samuel as well was somebody that late in the season, once he was healthy, he was great. I mean, he led them receiving, I think, 2 of the last 4 games of the year. And he looked like a much different player coming back from turf toe, which I'll take from Eric Wood. That he says on our pregame all the time. Turf toe is not described perfectly. It's a horrendous way to describe something. It's a tear in your foot. And as a receiver, that is going to hurt you. And so it's a lot of hope, but I actually think there's some there's some justification to it. The guy I'm most interested in is not even a receiver, but has been pegged as one, and it is a guy like Dalton Kincaid, and what he can be.
And lastly, though, with the wide receiver, I do think there is another aspect of it that does not have that name in the position. Can Dalton Kincaid have a season similar to what he had his rookie year? If you can get 600 yards out of him, a better catch percentage, better target percentage, there's even less questions about the wide receiver position as a whole.
Yeah, hey, I'm right there with you. And we'll close this conversation off on special teams. Although with wide receiver, my favorite guy is Elijah Moore, but the one I'm most interested to see is Curtis Samuel. Can he re-enter this conversation? Because he's an afterthought in Bills fans' minds at this point. I think they've almost fully moved on from him, despite him coming on strong at the end of last season. I just don't think he's at the forefront of the conversation entering training camp any longer, except for when you get into a deeper discussion on a podcast or something like that. So I'm interested to see if he can throw his hat back in the ring, do anything meaningful during training camp to have you latch onto. But I just want to round this conversation out with special teams. Punter, obviously, an interesting position to follow. the old Puntapalooza at training camp, but
I
also
was going to say I'm not Joe Biscaglia.
Also kick returner. I think kick returner, I mentioned it on the podcast the other day, and I just want to get your guys' quick thoughts before we get out of here. What happens with Brandon Codrington could lead to some dominoes falling at other positions, specifically the cornerback position. So I want to see if he can maintain that spot as a kick returner or if the Bills go a different route.
And furthermore, they brought in Laviska Shenault for a reason. Laviska Shenault is a good return man. He has not done much at receiver in the entirety of his career, but he does have a good return game to him. Also, you want to see if other players might try to carve out a role, becoming a name at the return game to challenge Codrington as well.
And like you mentioned, Shenault, Ray Davis, Ty Johnson spent time at kick returner. Also, Elijah Moore may have something to say about that.
I'm a big Brandon Codrington guy, though. I think he had a little bit of a pop that we really haven't seen a ton for Bills returners, and there's really only a few guys. And now with
you grew up on Terrence McGee, you want a good kick return,
right? But now with the new kickoff rules, I do wonder. I mean, like I think it's become an important position again. Of you need somebody that will be a weapon for you. Where for years it's kind of been like just catch the ball, don't screw this up, and our offense will get on the field. Now teams might have to play a little bit more with it, with the fear of, where are you going to be starting on the field if we have a touchback? I mean, guys like Brandon Codrington or even Laviska Shenault could really play a big part in the Bills' attack this year.
I'm excited to see it all transpire beginning this coming Wednesday. But get on down to Mafia Con. There's still some time left. I think players are still here. If not, there's plenty of vendors. Yeah, players, vendors, food, everything you could possibly want. We got Pat Moran doling out free beers over here. Everything on Pat Moran's tab. So let's get involved here. But hey, everybody enjoy yourself, and thank you for joining us on this episode of Buffalo Pregame, live from Mafia Con with Zach Jones and Derek Kramer. Give it up for these guys.